Let's go live now to Walt Secord. Walt is the Public Affairs Director at the Australia, Israel and Jewish Affairs Council. Give us an update, Walt. We've spoken about it recently, but what's the situation for the Jewish community in Australia right now, and what sort of levels of anti-Semitism have been experienced?
Well, last week, the Executive Council of Australian Jewry, the national roof body, released a report showing that anti-Semitism levels in Australia had reached record levels. In fact, a 738% increase. Now, you probably realize that I have an accent. I've lived in Australia now for 36 years, and I have not seen anti-Semitism, the public expression of anti-Semitism, reach these levels in my entire life. It's extraordinary. You have a situation where school children are reluctant to wear the uniforms. People are being subjected to graffiti outside of in their local institutions, but also harassment. It is extraordinary, and it's something that I think is absolutely un-Australian. We know that it's a small group engaging in this activity, but it's absolutely unacceptable, and it's put the Jewish community on edge.
Yeah, which is a terrible situation for our Australians. They are fellow Australians and should be safe and should be allowed to go to school wearing their uniforms, Walt.
Yeah, absolutely. And people should be able to walk to their places of worship, to their synagogues, free of harassment and abuse on the streets. Again, could you imagine walking to your place of worship and having someone yell at you from a car just because you are going to your place of worship and you are wearing a kippah? People are wearing hats, covering up their school uniforms, changing their behavior, and it's absolutely unacceptable. It's not the Australia that I know and love.
What was your read on the government's position at the United Nations last week, supporting that call for a ceasefire?
There was absolute disappointment in the Jewish community. It was actually a contradictory message because earlier in the morning there was a statement signed with New Zealand and Canada where they actually condemned Hamas, and there was a recognition that Hamas had been involved in atrocities. Now, the UN resolution, which Australia voted for, puts us outside of the United States and Germany, significant players. Again, this is a resolution that Australia should have at least abstained from. It also sends a message to Hamas. It encourages Hamas, and it's just a bad signal from Australia to our allies and to Israel at its time when it needs our support.
The longer this goes on, and you know better than anyone, Walt, the difficulties, the complexities for Israel in continuing its mission to destroy Hamas, they remain and intensify, yes, don't they? How can they grapple with that? And I know it's a tough question at the same time as they've got so many families of hostages wanting the Israeli government to tread carefully as well in that sense to get their loved ones home.
Absolutely. Now, this is the 10th week of war, and I know that the large majority of Australians know who started this war. Hamas started this war, and Israel will finish this war. But to finish the war, it has to remove Hamas, because Hamas has said it will regroup and do this again and again. That is a direct quote. So the only way that peace will be restored is if Hamas is removed. Now, I understand it's a difficult situation for the Israeli government to be in, with hostages, their own citizens being held in barbaric conditions. But it's something where you have to balance national security. Again, our heart goes out to the families who have hostages in Gaza, and we know that they're being subjected to horrific conditions. We know that from the testimony of the people who have been released. But again, this is the 10th week of a war, and Hamas has said they'll regroup and they'll do it again and again. So you understand that Israel is determined to end this war, but it can only end the war if Hamas is removed.
Walt Secord from the Australia, Israel and Jewish Affairs Council. Thanks. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, Kieran.